And as I mentioned, as we're talking about the Postal Service issue, Rodney, the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, is testifying before Congress, I believe, as we speak, in fact. There's ongoing, I guess I'm just going to call this a conspiracy theory, and something I addressed to the to the Facebook group that basically alleges that the president has been stealing mailboxes in order to further steal the election. I don't know if you've got a take on this, but if you do, go for it.
I don't believe the president is stealing mailboxes. I don't believe that he instructed anybody to steal mailboxes. I believe the post office has been a failing institution for a long time because it's not public and it's not private. It's a quasi-private institution where it's supposed to run independently, and yet they can't raise their own rates. And so first-class mail is what pays the bills, but first-class mail is dropping like a rock because we use email and, file transfer and all sorts of stuff. People just don't mail letters like they did before, and it's continuing to drop. And yet you have to keep a post office, and all these zip codes remain, right? You can't consolidate. Everybody votes against that. And so they can't change their rates. They can't change their footprint. They can't change their delivery without Congress. And yet Congress won't come in and let them do the things they need to do to be fiscally responsible. What's killing them, if you go look at their numbers, is their pensions. They have a very generous retirement program, but they're required to fund it, unlike, by the way, all the states. And so what happens every year is they say, well, we call it made $1 billion. These numbers are not right. But for example, made $1 billion, but we owe $3 billion to our pension, so we lost $2 billion in operation. That's what goes on every year. And so Congress is responsible for this failing institution, and yet Congress is now hauling them in front of, Congress to testify on why they're failing. And it's like, I really can't tell you because you didn't do your job for the last 30 years. Is that what we say?
No, what they're doing is they're hauling in the Trump flunky who's trying to sabotage the organization. And my own conspiracy theory is that all of the conspiracy theory about the stolen mailboxes was a ploy in order to give more funding to the USPS. That's my conspiracy theory.
Well, so all this comes amid a pandemic where people look and say, well, let's do mail-in ballot. Right. And then they say, wait a second, if we're going to mail something, will it get there? That's a really good question. And so this is easy to solve. I could solve this. A 10-year-old could solve this. If you cannot say that a letter that you mail in one day before a deadline will get there, then mail it earlier.
Oh, come on, Rodney.
It's kind of an
that's
idea.
Ridiculous. We need to have I have the same thing. I mean, make it a month if you need to, right? Or something, or 2 weeks.
That's just it. And so what happens in many jurisdictions for absentee ballot, and even some jurisdictions with mail-in, which is different, is that they allow you to register for the ballot in absentee, because clearly mail-in, they send it to everyone. But they allow you to register very close to the election date, which means they then have to mail it to you. You then have to mail it back. Instead of allowing that so close to the election, like you say, make it 2 weeks out. And if you want to mail in your vote, make it happen. Love you like a brother. Just do it at least 7 days ahead of time. If it's not postmarked 3 days ahead of the election or 5 days ahead of the election, we're not going to count it, and just leave it at that. But no, I mean, nobody wants to do that because it would make it easy.
And we need to make things as complicated and partisan as possible.